Arcade Heroes.
Get ready!
Greetings, it's Adam with ArcadeHeroes.com, and we've got some arcade news for you of a new game that's been spotted on Location Test. It's not a video game, but it's still showing up in arcades, and this is coming to us from Andamiro, USA. One thing to mention about Andamiro as to how they often function before we get into this is that Andamiro likes to take a license that they get and milk it for all it's worth. Not that there's anything necessarily wrong with that, although sometimes they've done things with the SpongeBob license, which is a little bit perplexing, like basically re-releasing the exact same game, but with a different name, and then it's just like, okay, so what's really different about this? I have no idea, and it's a little weird on that side. But for this new game here, which you can sort of see, this isn't the best photo. This comes from LinkedIn. Let's hop over to Reddit, where they got some slightly better photos, or really much better photos. Star Wars Death Star Assault. And so this appears, at first it was like, oh, is this a water gun game? But I'm pretty sure that it is a ball shooting game. And it looks like the targets within the center will pop down, and then you hit them and they'll fall back. And so there'll be some mechanisms there to make them pop back out, probably like a solenoid or something. I don't know if there is a full monitor behind it. It's like at the top, there's definitely a monitor, but it might be, say, a vertically mounted monitor and just protected with plexiglass so that hitting it with balls doesn't damage the monitor or anything. But it's kind of hard to tell from this because other than these obvious cutouts here, I'm not sure on the centers there. But that would make it more dynamic and better. And then what it is you're competing on shooting the targets between these 4-player stations to get your fighter, whether it's Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, and Chewbacca, Princess Leia, or C-3PO and R2-D2 to the finish line first to win the big ticket jackpot, which is what all the kids love, right? As you know, or if you're new around here, I'm not a big fan of ticket redemption games. I mean, obviously I'm still covering them. They're still part of the arcade business. That's unavoidable. And the other thing is that they do make a lot of money. However, as myself and another operator have discovered, where we've resisted putting in ticket redemption games into our game rooms, is that games will still make money. If there's not, video games will, sorry. So if they're not competing with a ticket redemption game, they'll still earn those dollars that came into your business anyways. And then, of course, they'll perform better on paper versus what redemption typically does. But anyways, I understand why the industry chases this so hard, is because it obviously appeals to a lot of players these days. Not so much to gamers like myself. But you got these stool seats and these dual joystick mounted guns, or these mounted guns that use these two joystick-like handles on them. And you just use that to aim and fire, again, I assume balls. Oh, okay, and you have these little X-Wing cutouts that will go over to the win side. And so this is at the Dave & Buster's, a Dave & Buster's in Dallas, Texas, off of, let's see, this said, off of North Central XB in Dallas. And so your main goal is to destroy the Death Star. So that's how you win, is you're one of these people piloting an X-Wing, which only Luke Skywalker did. I guess technically R2-D2 did as well. Piloting an X-Wing to blow up that Death Star. But yeah, could be interesting to see how this does. Ball shooting games are becoming more of a thing. I saw one at Amusement Expo 2025, the Cannonball Jam by Blue Motion Games. And so this makes sense for a place like Dave & Buster's, where they love to have licenses, something that instantly draws attention to it. So what I wanted to talk about a little bit in addition to this. Assuming that this won't be a full Dave & Buster's exclusive, it might be. But this also might just be a test for the wider industry to pick up later. Again, Andamiro's already done the Star Wars coin pusher, but still, when I saw that, and now that I see this, I'm a little bit perplexed. And to explain why, I mean, growing up, I was a big Star Wars fan. I mean, I wasn't the number one Star Wars fan or anything. I don't remember really having any toys. A friend of mine had some toys. He actually had a Star Destroyer toy. I remember us playing with when I was like maybe 4 or 5 or something like that. And I don't know if he ever held on to those and sold them for big money later on, since they were original toys, not toys from reproduction stuff later on. But as a teenager, when Phantom Menace was announced and the reality hit that they actually were doing a new Star Wars movie finally, the hype was real. And I remember being really jazzed for it. In fact, the person I was working for at the time, she was such a big Star Wars fan that she bought all of her employees, myself included, midnight showing tickets to the Phantom Menace. I didn't dress up or anything. That's not really my thing to do. But remember watching that there and being happy to have seen it at midnight. But then, of course, really disappointed as the movie went on and dragged on, especially by the second lap of the pod race. It's just like, oh my gosh, are we still doing this? Can we get back to something cooler? I mean, obviously not the trade negotiations weren't cool, but a lot more lightsaber battles or something more character driven. I don't know, just anything would have been better at that point. Anyways, I'm digressing, but when Disney bought Star Wars, there was a lot of optimism that I remember feeling. It's like, hey, Disney, they generally seem like they know what they're doing. They should have a lot of creatives in place. That was proven absolutely wrong, and that's what gives me pause, is because if you do take a look at the declining ratings, the declining earnings of Star Wars movies, The Rise of Skywalker made, I think, about half as much as The Force Awakens did, and really, The Force Awakens wasn't that great. It was more just because it's like, oh my gosh, this is the first the first new trilogy, and it's going to be from Disney, and everybody was excited about what they were going to do. And I do think that The Force Awakens did a lot of great setups, but they absolutely botched it because they were so incompetent that they didn't plan out the entire trilogy in the beginning, and it was just like, have the next guy figure it out, and that was obviously a disaster. And anecdotally speaking, I mean, to some degree, it's backed up with actual numbers. For example, Star Wars merchandise decline after The Last Jedi came out. The amount of money that Star Wars toys was bringing in kept dropping and dropping and dropping. And now, obviously, made over $1 billion last year in 2024 isn't bad, but the drops in like 2018, 2019, immediately following The Last Jedi, was really bad, and a pretty good indicator as to where the whole fan base was at. But then, of course, as mentioned, ratings as well with the TV shows. There's been a consistent decline in viewership. The Acolyte saw a huge drop off from that, and from the reviews I saw on that, it was absolutely trash. And then, of course, I think it was the Skeleton Crew was the least watched Star Wars show, and so it's the trend on. This is why I'm questioning, why is it that the industry is still chasing this brand when it seems to have, from all the indicators out there, while it's not dead, it's on a pretty steep decline, and it's not gaining new fans is the big problem. And I guess the other thing that I come to is this is much more anecdotal, but for those of you who have been watching me for a while, or maybe you discovered the channel through one of these videos, I used to own a Star Wars battle pod, and I operate an arcade. That's where I'm at currently. But I decided to take a risk on that because it was Star Wars. I was a fan too. I had other Star Wars games around here, like Sega Star Wars Trilogy Arcade, which was one of my favorite arcade games of the 90s. And I also now have the Mandalorian pinball. We have an original Data East Star Wars pinball. We've had the Star Wars Stern pinball as well. But after The Last Jedi came out, everything that I have that has the Star Wars name attached to it, and it doesn't matter if it's all based on the original trilogy or I haven't had anything from the prequel trilogy, but from the Disney trilogies, the earnings have dropped on it. And on the Star Wars Battle Pod, which was the most expensive game that I had ever purchased, which was over $30,000, I think more closer to $35,000, there was a certain, I don't remember how much the monthly payments were on it. I want to say somewhere around $600 a month. But all the way up until The Last Jedi's release, which, if I recall correctly, was December 2017, maybe. The Battle Pod was making enough to cover its monthly payments and a little bit more. But after The Last Jedi, it flipped. It never, ever made enough money again to cover its monthly payments. It did see bumps whenever there would be a Star Wars movie that would come out, say like, there was Rise of Skywalker, of course. I can't remember if there was something else in between there, as I can't remember when Solo came out. Of course, that bombed as part of the evidence towards this trend. But either way, that became a big deal to me, because I can't afford to lose money on stuff if I want to keep my doors open, if I want to keep my employees paid, if I want to pay myself anything. But that's why I eventually ended up selling the Battle Pod. Now, to be fair, the Battle Pod was not a perfect game. It was, the action on it was great. Where it was an on-rails shooter, essentially, there could have maybe been a few more randomized elements or choosing different paths. One of the big things that really annoyed me, and I never understood why Namco did this, was the leaderboards only showed up when your game was over. They would never show up in the attract mode or anything. It's like, that would probably take 5 minutes for a competent programmer to implement. But for some bizarre reason, it was like, what's the point in having a score if you only see it once? Of course, that's a trend, too, that's affected several different arcade games in recent years, and it's stupid. If any programmer out there is watching this, stop doing that. Look at how leaderboards have been done successfully in the past, which is show them during the attract mode, have ways to share them, like Rothreels does a great job at this with the QR code sharing and such. But why we keep regressing on leaderboards, it's like you're removing an incentive to play the game by not allowing people to know where they landed at and where they're at within the top 10 and all that, or having a grand champion or anything. And so I'm often critical of pinball. That's one place where they're still excellent at that. And they come up with different leaderboards and different challenges and things of that nature that adds replay value to it. But I'm digressing a little bit. Either way, the Battle Pod, its main attraction was the hardware. The dome screen was really cool. That whole experience was unique. That was something you couldn't get at home. Also, they never released the software to home, which I was grateful for. But still, the game itself needed more replay value, and it was lacking that. So in that regard, sure, it could have done better there. But still, just everything else that I've had that has the Star Wars name attached to it, including the pinball machines, have seen a drop since The Last Jedi. It's very clear to me that The Last Jedi really screwed over the franchise, but then Disney hasn't done themselves any favors with a lot of the other creative choices, if you even want to call some of them that, as to handling the franchise. And just there seems to be a lot of apathy out there towards Star Wars, again, judging from the declining merchandise sales, the declining arcade sales. For me, I wouldn't choose to buy a Star Wars machine at this point. The only reason I actually ended up with the Mandalorian was not that I went out and bought one. It was that I got it on a trade with something else. And it was I got 2 pinball machines and a basketball machine out of it. And so I was like, hey, sure, why not? And of course, at the time when I got it, people were into Baby Yoda and all that jazz. But that, of course, died off too. Because if you want to talk about creative difference or creative choices, I think it was really stupid of them to do a 3rd season, when the way that they ended the 2nd season ended that whole story thread quite perfectly. And they obviously didn't have any creative drive or creative intelligence to come up with something unique that didn't have to be tied to Baby Yoda at that point. Grogu, yes, I know, but or for season 3, and bringing him back and undoing what had happened in season 2 was just idiotic. But of course, I'm not at Lucasfilm. I'm not a Hollywood writer. What do I know? And everything. But still, to me, it's just like I don't fully when I see numbers like that, and I've talked to other operators too to see, it's like, is this a fluke? Is it just me that's seeing a drop in Star Wars stuff? Other operators have seen the same thing. Now, obviously, location testing will show numbers and stuff like that, and this does offer something unique as far as the shooting balls and stuff in a different way than what we often see in the arcade business, so perhaps that will work out well. But at the same time, I mean, one thing that really baffled me about the Star Wars coin pusher that Andamiro did is that it did not have any Star Wars sounds from it. It didn't have voice clips, from what I recall. When you would have a coin drop down the ramp, it would use a generic laser shooting sound, not the iconic X-Wing or TIE Fighter laser sounds. And it's just like, really? Was Disney so greedy that they were going to charge tens of thousands of dollars for a single sound? Or couldn't you just negotiate that into it? Or was just whoever designed the game not paying attention and just like, oh, whatever, just throw in a laser sound? I don't know the story behind it there, but it's still a little perplexing to me that it doesn't, like, part of the movie viewing experience is also the audio experience, and a movie like Star Wars just has certain things that when you hear it, you know instantly what it is. I already mentioned X-Wing or the TIE Fighter or a lightsaber igniting, anything like that. The voices themselves, of course, iconic lines, things of that nature. And so why you wouldn't integrate that into a game unless it just became prohibitively expensive for the license. But of course, if that's also the case, it's like, why even bother with that? Why not chase something else where somebody maybe is a little less greedy? I don't know. Anyways, what are your thoughts on Star Wars Death Star Assault, on Star Wars in general? Do you think I'm wrong about my analysis of the of the franchise? Really? Obviously, I'm not a professional movie critic or anything like that. There's quite a few that I watch and trust, though, and I've seen quite a few come to similar conclusions on that. But let me know in the comments below, and we'll catch you on the next video. And if you see this out there, let us know how it plays and what you think about it. See you around.